Hello and welcome to our weekly IG Live. Today I'm very excited to be talking to Ashley Franklin. A lot of you will know her as the author of Not Quite Snow White. She also has a follow-up to that, Better Together Cinderella, and she also has written a Little Mermaid book, and now she has a brand new one that's come out. I don't have a copy because it literally just came out 2 days ago, but it's very exciting. It's Moon Girl and the Devil Dinosaurs, the basis of it, the series. And so she's written a book for younger readers based on that animated series, which is based on the Marvel comic book. So it's exciting to be talking with her today. Again, if you like these, you can join us every week. We're going to be staying at the 3 p.m. Eastern time for this month. And then in September, we are going to be shifting to accommodate my kids' schedule starting when school gets back in. So we're going to be moving to, let me think for a moment, it's going to be 1 p.m. Eastern, but you can wait a little bit on that. We're still going to be staying at this schedule for August, so you can join us here every week at 3 o'clock Eastern. Hold on just a minute. We're going to be talking with Ashley Franklin and learn all about her new book. She had one that came out recently about a Muslim boy, and now we've got this new one, which is based on the comic. Hello.
Hi.
So good to talk with you again. For those that don't know, we just did an interview on Multicultural Children's Book Day not very long ago about a different book that just came out. It's so exciting. You have all these books that are coming out. And so I thought this time we'd concentrate on the one that just came out. Congratulations.
Thank you.
Yes. Do you have a copy? Because I was not able to get a copy since it just came out. Maybe we can show people. Yes, it looks so wonderful. As I said, now this is based on the animated series Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur, which was based on the Marvel comic book characters. So please feel free to introduce yourself and then tell us all about the new book.
Thank you so much. I want to say I'm glad to be here so soon. I had such a joy last time that we spoke. So thank you for inviting me.
Thank you.
And my name is Ashley Franklin, and I am a children's book author. And the most recent book, if you're just joining us, that I just released is Moon Girl and Devil Dinosaur, Here Today, Gone Tomorrow.
Lovely. And I should mention for those that are just joining, I mentioned before that you have many other wonderful books. I have copies of 2 of them, and then there's the other, forgive me, I can't remember the Masjid, the
Masjid Kamal Love.
Yes, which also came out very recently and is another wonderful book. And you also have the Little Mermaid book that came out very recently. So you've got so much going on, but oh, there it is. Wow, such a beautiful cover. So, but to focus on the new book that just came out, I was curious about it because, you know, when you think about an animated series that has so many different plot points going on and story arcs, how did you figure out, like, how did you translate that into a book for younger readers and decide what you were going to focus on?
First of all, it was honestly overwhelming, particularly because of the excitement going into it. They sent us actual, like, most of the first season before it ever aired. And so there was still like rough animation and everything. We were like searching through files to see which one to watch. And I was giddy, I lie not, trying to, access the thing, but going through the episode itself was a bit tedious because so much of it felt important. Like, oh, that's a good point. Oh, that's a good point. Oh, I want to stress that too. But, it's difficult when you have to like take a step back and be like, okay, I really need this to translate into like 32 pages or less. And I had to end up focusing on Lunella Lafayette. I was like, okay, so what is her story arc? And that's where I had to be like, okay, what affected her first? What affected her second? And trying to see what would resonate with her and readers.
Mhm.
as her main issues and main problems. And that was how I went about narrowing that down. Because, we have the typical superhero, but she's not. We get to see more of her human side, more of, she's a 13-year-old super genius, but she still has regular everyday issues.
Mhm.
And I wanted that to resonate, that the issues that we all face, just the universality of it.
Mhm.
And her issue is her hair. And I feel like no matter who you are, no matter your age, no matter your culture, your beliefs, any of that, you've had at least one bad hair day.
Yeah.
You've had an experience where you didn't feel like you were presenting your best self. Or conversely, perhaps you've had that moment where you were feeling like you were on your A game. You were feeling like you were beautiful or handsome and just the picture perfect idea of yourself. And then someone makes a comment and makes you question all of that.
Right.
So I feel like that's very relatable with the themes that I put in my other books of being perfectly imperfect
Yes.
and the struggle that many of us have in accepting that truth.
I love that, your subject matter in some ways, if you look at the collection of the books that you've written, in some ways it can seem really different. You've got these books that are picture books that kind of draw on fairy tales, and then you have ones that are based on a Disney movie or for animated series. And yet, like you said, there's that theme of being perfectly imperfect and self-kindness and self-love. And here in this book, you have a superhero, and I think that's so wonderful to show kids that, yes, even a superhero has these problems. So what do you hope that kids get out of the book? What do you hope they take away from it?
I really hope that they take away the notion that the best kind of love starts with self-love.
Mm, I love that. And one of the things I thought was interesting is particularly picking the idea of your hair. And in the book, Lunella's mom tells her to love your hair is to love yourself. Why is taking care of your hair such an important topic, but such a kind of such a big deal? Particularly, I mean, like you said, that kind of cuts across cultures. Everybody has to deal with that, but it is a special significance, I think, for girls of color. So why hair particularly?
Particularly African Americans come under a lot of scrutiny for our hairstyles, whether it be quote unquote looking professional in certain spaces. We can come under attack for that. Like locks, used to be called dreadlocks, and just how our hair is perceived by others in society is something that's usually taken away from us. There was a time when African Americans couldn't show their hair, so they had the wraps, certain styles, again, not to wear, emulating, having to use straightening combs, even when we didn't want to at one time, just so we could be more accepted in what society perceived as the normal beauty standard, so to speak. And so that's even an issue today, with school dress codes and things. The
Right.
length of hair, the texture. If you have an afro, is it too big or distracting? And it's like, how can your natural hair growing out of your scalp be seen as a distraction?
Right.
And so particularly again for African Americans, it's like we want to highlight the notion that yes, it's hair, but for us, it's an extension of ourselves and our freedom.
Mhm. There's so much meaning and significance in here, and something like you said, it has like this long history behind it, and yet it's still so relevant today. And we've got, is it the Crown Act? I'm trying to remember the name of it. And like you said, a lot of problems with dress codes and at schools and at businesses. So it's so relevant to talk about. And this is not the first time that you've written about a beloved character from pop culture, thinking about Little Mermaid, or even just going back to Snow White,
Mm-hmm.
Cinderella. So as somebody who loved cartoons and Disney as a kid, what does it mean to you to be a part of that world today as an author?
It has such a significant meaning for me because it feels like someone with a different color skin or a different look now has the ability not to be an afterthought.
Yes.
And that's phenomenal for someone's self-esteem, just to be thought of first or primarily, not as a side character or secondary. Just that importance, it really does something, again, to your self-esteem. And that's something that everyone should be able to experience.
Yes, and I think especially to be on the what's the word I'm looking for? Like on the back end, on the creative side of it, not just in the characters, but to have the creators also be coming from different cultures. I think is so powerful and comes through
Yeah.
in the books. And what do you think that means for kids who are reading those?
Well, I'll speak to The Little Mermaid particularly. I did get to meet Hallie, and that was big for me personally.
Mhm. Wow.
um, and just being able to be a Black Muslim woman connected to something as big as Disney and a beloved character like Ariel,
Mhm.
that's something that, childhood me never would have thought I'd be able to do.
Mhm.
And so I feel like not only do children get to see the characters themselves, they get to see, you know what? I may be able to be a part of something bigger,
Mhm.
more job opportunities that I didn't think were even open to me as a possibility to explore.
Right, and to touch on, because we've been talking more about maybe the pop culture connections to your books, which are very powerful. But I also want to be able to talk about your other book. We've mentioned it briefly, and that's The Masjid That Kamal Loves, which I think really helps break down a lot of stereotypes that people have about Muslims. And can you talk a little bit more about that, about how the book does that, and also how anybody who reads it, I think, can relate to the idea about community and coming together and having this joyous space that you share with other people.
Sure. My intention with the Masjid Kamal Loves was simple. I really just wanted a happy book. I didn't want to create a Muslim character who had the weight of the world on his shoulders, who had to be the perfect Muslim. I just want to show that children of all ages and faiths and beliefs can just exist and be, you know, being that chosen one or the responsibility of being the representation for anyone other than yourself,
Right.
I feel like that's too big of a burden that children shouldn't have to shoulder. And so I didn't want to create a character that had to shoulder that responsibility. I wanted them to absolutely 100,000% be relatable to anyone that's ever, like you said, been in a joyous space, anyone that's ever felt love from a larger community, anyone that's been in a space where they had to learn how to actually be in that space and what that meant to them.
Mm-hmm.
And all of those things can resonate beyond the character and really create a larger learning moment, just besides this is how a Muslim should act when they go to the masjid. There are lots of other authors who are phenomenal at doing that. But for me personally, I wanted to create joyous snapshots.
Mm. Beautiful. And that makes me think of, do you ever feel like, you know, I feel like a lot of time authors of color, or if they're from a particular religious group, like minority group, that they're given the extra burden that not only do they have to write to kids that will see themselves in the books, but they're also supposed to bridge to people who wouldn't see themselves in the book, and so they're always kind of having to balance these dual perspectives. Have you felt that pressure to do that? And if so, how do you do that you know, like you said, like to take the example of the Masjid Kamal Loves, that you want it to be something that was really wonderful for Muslim kids, and yet you're also making it relatable to kids that aren't. Was that a hard balance to do?
I want to say this as tactfully as possible. There's absolutely no way to write like that successfully. If you try
Mm,
to please everyone, the number one person you're going to let down is yourself
mm,
as a writer and a creative. And being true to your voice and the messages that you want to get across, that has to stay number one, or your love of writing, your love of the craft, your love of making something for children, it's going to come to a grinding halt. And
mm.
I have felt that. And, Not Quite Snow White, my first book, it did very well. And so that second book, and any book after that, I was like, who's my audience? What can I do? What should I do? And that is something that absolutely killed my creativity.
Mm.
That is what caused me personally to have writer's block. And it wasn't until I took a step back and reclaimed the joy that got me started doing this that I was able to break through that.
I love that, and I think that also speaks to the fact that you write from such an honest, sincere place, and if you're writing from what gives you joy and what rings true for you, then I think that gets across to that. That's what makes it relatable to anyone.
Yeah.
Yeah, and actually, could we talk a little bit more about the writing process? Because, you know, we're mostly focusing on you as an author, and yet you're also an educator. And we've talked a lot about on this channel about how people can use writing as a healing practice, whether you're an author or whether you're, you know, whether you're not, and you just want to maybe do journaling, or maybe you are doing creative fiction. What I know you've talked about how it's been important in your own life and for your students. So what do you recommend for somebody who wants to get started? They've heard about the benefits of writing and trying to find their own voice, but they just don't even know where to start. Do you have any advice?
Journaling. I feel like journaling is the best thing in the universe, honestly. I do. I'm a proponent of journaling. I love the idea of just writing without pressure. And I feel like sometimes we may have certain feelings about things that we don't even recognize until we take the time and the mental space that we allow ourselves to feel them and write them out. And also, I feel like, okay, putting my educator hat back on for a second. I love free writing. That is my most favorite activity for students to do. And it's something that I also do when I'm writing on my own. If I'm stuck or if I have a fresh idea, I will whip out a blank piece of paper and set my timer for 3 minutes and be like, okay, let's get to it.
Mm.
And I think just the freedom of knowing that you can use and find your authentic voice to get your, I want to say, get your heart on the page. I think
Mm.
the power that comes with that. And that's something that you need to be able to do no matter what you're trying to write or what audience that you're trying to target.
And I love the idea of setting a timer, because I think a lot of us, the idea of sitting down and writing seems overwhelming. But if you just set, I mean, we can all do 3 minutes.
Yeah,
You
you know it's coming to an end. It's, even if it feels like forever when you're in it, it's like, I know it's only 3 minutes. I can do this.
Well, thank you for that advice, and thank you for taking the time to talk with us today. It is always so wonderful to speak with you.
Thank,
So thank you
thank
for
you
taking
for being
time out
here.
of your day. Thank you, and thanks everybody for watching. This will be up on Instagram in just a few minutes, and then we'll have it up on our YouTube channel. Bye, everybody.
Bye. Thank you for joining.